Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing well today. We have an incredible entrepreneur joining us, Andrew Bloch, who's going to share his marketing and PR insights. I hope you get a lot from it today. Just before I bring Andrew on and he shares his insights, I just want to mention our mission here is to help 1 million people start a business of their own and make sure that anyone that does start a business never feels alone doing it. We run one-on-one 15-minute support sessions for anyone that wants to start a business or grow a business. We have some of the world's most unbelievably experienced entrepreneurs in our network, and we are here to connect you to those people and get you free help. A big part of what we do here at the Purposeful Project is help people for free. We're not looking to sell anything, not looking to get anything from you. We just feel right now there's so many people out there, for example, that can't find a job. We don't want to lose a generation. We want to make sure that those people get access to creating a job for themselves. I personally believe anyone can be an entrepreneur. There's no such thing as types of an entrepreneur. In other words, there's no types of doctors, there's no types of lawyers. There's lots of different categories of doctors. There's lots of different categories of lawyers. And in entrepreneurship, it's really just a question of not if you are an entrepreneur, but what type of entrepreneur are you? And I think, therefore, the key is getting the skills you need. And one way we're doing that is by bringing on brilliant entrepreneurs like Andrew Bloch today to share his knowledge and insights. If you want to hear from the world's most successful entrepreneurs, you can do that by going onto our podcast platform, thegoodluckpod.com. And I hope you enjoy today's interview with Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the stage. How are you?
Oh, I'm very good, Simon. How are you?
Good. It's wonderful to have you here. Maybe for those that don't know you, perhaps take a minute or two just to explain a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, of course. So I'm probably best known for co-founding a PR agency called Frank, which is one of the UK's leading communication agencies, responsible for doing the work of lots and lots of brands. I stepped back from that last year to move into a non-executive role with the agency to allow me to do other stuff. And now, amongst other things, I'm still Lord Sugar's spokesperson and PR advisor, which I've been doing for the last 20 or so years, but also advise and consult and help other companies with their marketing and communications needs. So I sit on the board of a range of different companies, ranging from PR software company called Propel, a video recruitment company called Phoenix. I do a lot of M&A work in the marketing services space for PCB advisors, and then help out lots of companies and put them in touch with the best PR and marketing people in the business.
It's fantastic to have you here, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to share your knowledge with us. I guess it's always interesting for me to start out by asking my guests, what is success to you? How do you measure success?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think I probably have changed my views on success and what success means over the years. I think now what success means to me is being happy and enjoying the work that I do, but also having the balance and the time to enjoy the success I've achieved in my career, to be able to spend time with my kids and my friends and enjoy it a little bit. I think that is the ultimate success, is the sort of time you can give yourself to free yourself up to actually enjoy what you're doing.
Within a PR context, how do you, when you're working with clients, how do you determine what success would be for a campaign, for example? How do you structure that sort of stuff out?
Well, PR's always got to lead to a business outcome. So whether that's selling more products, changing perceptions positively towards a company, driving hits to a website, whatever it may be, I'm not a believer in doing PR for the sake of PR. So the first thing I'll always do is figure out with the founder of a company, the CEO, the marketing director, what it is they're actually trying to achieve, and then work backwards to create a campaign that's going to do that and put in place measurements so that you can prove the success of the work that you're doing.
Is there any particular PR campaign you've worked on or marketing campaign you've worked on that sticks out in your mind as like, wow, that was it. That was, what I had all this training to do?
Oh gosh. I mean, when you work in PR, you tend to always sort of love the last campaign that you've done. The most recent campaign that Frank did, I actually had very little to do with, but was the Weetabix and baked beans campaign that broke the internet a couple of weeks ago. And I can't claim to have had much input or any input into that at all, really. I sat back and enjoyed it blow up like everyone else. But over the years, there's been lots of things. One of my favourite campaigns was the campaign we did for Compare the Meerkat back in the day when the Meerkat was introduced, and our role as an agency and my role as a PR person was to make the Meerkat famous. And we did all sorts of stuff. He had a podcast way before podcasts were a thing, sort of 10 or so years ago, where he interviewed Piers Morgan and David Hasselhoff, and we did all sorts of fun things. We got this word simples put into the Oxford English Dictionary. We actually created the concept of the Meerkat toy, and originally we launched it as a charity initiative with London Zoo and launched it there. And the very last Meerkat out of a limited edition that we produced was auctioned off by Mohammed Al Fayed himself on the floor of Harrods, which was a pretty cool moment. But we've done sort of global launches for big brands like Call of Duty, done some really nice purpose work, working for people like Lewis Pugh, who's the UN ambassador for the oceans and does some crazy stuff to raise awareness around climate protection and the threat that poses the oceans. But honestly, there's just so many different campaigns over the years that I'm just lucky to have been involved in a lot of them, really.
And how did you end up working with Lord Sugar?
I ended up working with him sort of early on in the days of Frank. Actually, only about 3 months in, we had the chance to pitch for one of his products. Nick Hewer, who was his PR person, was retiring, and they were looking for a new agency, and we pitched for the business. We actually lost the pitch. I think we wanted to win it so much that we completely overcomplicated it and gave them a Rolls Royce when all they were looking for was a Mini. But I've never been one for taking no for an answer. And we got on the phone and in a pretty undignified manner just begged for an opportunity and said we could sort of tone it down, keep it simple. And originally my strategy was sort of stay away from Lord Sugar, or Sir Alan as he was at the time. There wasn't really any need to speak to him, but inevitably I would see him at product launches and events, and just gradually over time the relationship built and he grew to trust me. And I think, you know, when you're doing the PR for a person, it's very different to when you're doing it for a brand. There's a huge element of trust that's involved. So it's not something you enter into lightly. But over the years, I've just become more and more involved. When The Apprentice started in about 2005, I took on the role of looking after the winners. And when they came off the show, trying to transform them from, you know, essentially TV personalities into credible business people and helping them shape their businesses and make them a success. And, you know, the thing with Lord Sugar is, despite how many years he's been doing it, how old he is, he's got so much energy and so much passion, and there's constantly new things going on. It's a bit of a cliche, but no 2 days are the same. And it's amazing, some of the projects that I've had the chance to work on with him and still continue to work on with him.
Do you think going on platforms like The Apprentice is a good thing for, frankly, an already high-profile, successful entrepreneur? Or do you think that's a good strategy for people to get on TV shows like that?
I think it's the right thing for the right person. I mean, the reason, before Apprentice days, you know, I'd go around with Lord Sugar to schools and talk to kids, or do conferences, or we were doing work with the government, and we were reaching only sort of a small amount of people. And he saw The Apprentice as a platform to be able to inspire a huge number of young entrepreneurs. And actually one of the biggest fan bases of The Apprentice is 15, 16, 17-year-old kids who want to learn in a digestible way. And he really sees that. And that's the reason why he does it. He loves being able to help small businesses and entrepreneurs with a passion to succeed. I think it's the right thing for some people. It's not for others. You know, what he's able to offer is obviously years and years of experience, but also a network of, you know, PR and marketing people like me, but also the accountancy side, the legal side, the sales infrastructure. So if you're an entrepreneur and you've got a business, but you just can't really get it to, well, potentially even launching, but say that you've launched and you just don't know how to scale it up, that's where the real value comes in. And of course, having the tag of being an apprentice winner and having people sort of having viewed your journey, 10 million or so people watching you every week, is an incredible platform to launch a business. And the majority of the apprentice winners have gone on to great success and running really, really brilliant businesses in partnership with Lord Sugar. So yeah, it's not for everyone, but I guess you know what you're getting into if you go on a show like that, and you're able to evaluate whether it's something you would see as a benefit. And of course, thousands and thousands of people apply every year. So it's not so easy to get a place on the show, but if you're fortunate enough to do so, I would say the majority of people that have been on it will tell you what an incredible experience it is and how much value that they've got from it.
It's a fascinating subject. I personally almost had a startup TV show out in Asia, and it was the reason I pulled out of it is they actually tried to make me a character as opposed to be myself. They wanted me to be the Simon Cowell equivalent in this startup.
You're too nice for that.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I don't mind being critical, but it wasn't me. No, you're right, it wasn't me. I don't think I'm hard like that. I can't do it naturally, and I can't do it for entertainment value. But it was a shame. I like the idea of having a TV show, but I think a lot of these, I guess, these reality TV shows are characters, and I think that's something amazing about Lord Sugar. I feel like you've said it before, but what you see is what you get, right? He is that person that you see on TV.
Yeah, completely. I mean, look, it's a bit of a caricature, and there's a lot of sides to him that you don't see. He's an incredibly loyal person, great family man, brilliant sense of humour. But actually, the way that he portrays himself on the show is pretty much how he is day to day. And I don't think you can play a character. I think a big reason for The Apprentice's success is him as the host. And you only have to look at The American Apprentice, which has sort of swapped hosts numerous times, swapped the format numerous times. It hasn't achieved anywhere near the success that the UK version has managed to achieve for 15 years now.
Looking at how crowded the world is now on the marketing side, how do you get noticed now, do you think? What's the secret to breaking through?
The $1 million question. Well, I think, look, as you say, it's not difficult to reach a large number of people. Digital communications has meant that we can get a message out in seconds to huge, huge numbers of people. What's hard is to cut through, and you have to get people to sit up and take notice. At Frank, we used to call it talkability, which was actually a registered trademark of the agency, and we defined it as the buzz that takes over and does your best marketing for you. But essentially, you have to create conversations and you have to create engagement. And in order to do that, there's various different techniques and ways that you can achieve it. But you have to break conventions, you have to be disruptive, you have to get people to pay attention. And so for a brand, if you're trying to break into a crowded marketplace, you've got to think about, what's the one thing that makes us different? What's our USP? How are we going to play around with the perceptions of our industry? How are we going to disrupt the conventional ways of doing things? How can we tap into the conversations that are already happening and be a part of them? How can we be a part of popular culture? But there's a skill and there's a technique to doing it, and that's what good PR people get paid to do.
Is there anyone you think is doing this well in this day and age?
That's a good question. I mean, there's loads of brands, I think, that are doing it well. Anyone that you've noticed, I think, has done a good job of getting your attention. It's, you only have to sort of go onto Twitter, go onto Instagram and see the huge number of brands trying to sort of fight through and grab attention. And it's the ones that have the big numbers, the ones that are doing great business are the ones that are succeeding. And largely they're brands that have disrupted the conventions of the marketplace. And sometimes you don't always like what they're doing, but they've got your attention anyway. It's hard to pick out specific examples.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's interesting because sometimes we also get stuck in our bubbles, right? The algorithms, for example, have got so good at knowing what we will like. I'm always surprised about campaigns I haven't heard of because somehow I'm not in the loop on them as far as the algorithm is concerned. That seems to be such a big part of it all now.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder than ever, I think, to grab attention. And whilst the technology has improved and, as I say, like easier to reach people, but getting them to engage, I think, is more and more difficult. And our attention spans are lower than they've ever been. I think we put up these sort of bullshit buffers, which just penetrate commercial messaging. We don't even notice it. You can watch adverts, whether they're served to you over YouTube or on a traditional sort of 30-second TV slot, and they don't filter in. So you have to do something different. We're hit by thousands and thousands of commercial messages every day, and our brains have almost, I don't know, trained themselves to just ignore stuff. So you can't do the same thing again and again and again and expect to see different results if it's not working. You have to think about things slightly differently and be clever about it. But that doesn't always involve huge amounts of money. A great creative idea can come from anywhere. And there are, I think, too many brands focus on the medium and the channel. What can we do on Clubhouse? What would be a good Instagram campaign? What sponsorship could we do? What TV ad do we want to produce? And to me, that's not the way to go about it. It's about coming up with a great concept first and then figuring out which channels will help you deliver that message the best afterwards. So definitely sort of channel neutral creativity.
There's a lot of discussion these days as well about personal brand versus company brand. I have my own personal opinion on this, which is, I always worked quite hard on building the company brand and taking a back seat to building my personal brand in many respects, because I always felt like the company was scalable and I potentially wasn't, and the company is acquirable, whereas I am potentially not as easy to just buy, right? So I felt like I built Fluid, a company called Fluid, which I sold to PwC. Of course, I was part of that brand build, but when PwC took it over, it could survive without me. And so I've always been a big fan of building company brands, but I am now building my personal brand. I feel like it's actually quite weird to build a personal brand. But have you got a view on this at all? Is this something that comes up a lot in the discussions you have with people you work with?
It is something that comes up a lot. And I think personal branding is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. For someone like me, and I think someone like you, it's almost quite natural to be able to promote the things that you're involved with. And, I know that you're pretty prolific on every social media channel known to man. And it comes easily to you. I think for other founders, CEOs, business people, it's not such an easy or natural thing to do. And there are personal branding specialists that work in this area. And if you feel like you haven't got the time or the knowledge or don't quite know how to do it, you can work with them to achieve that and sort of take the load off you. For me, I'm not saying what I do is perfect. I have no idea if it's right or wrong, but it's just me talking, and I just don't find it difficult to share information, whether that be on sort of Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, now Clubhouse, my new trend of the moment. It's sort of, I just figure out I know how to do it. I think it's important, consumers are more than ever looking for authenticity in the brands that they buy into, and a great way for them to understand the values and the purpose of a company is by aligning that to the values of the founder. It's not right for every company. I think, in my opinion, same as you, when I was running Frank day to day, it's very much my belief that the Frank brand should be bigger than anyone within it. And it's actually a combination of the voices within the company that make the company who it is. But I didn't ever want to be the person that was the figurehead for the agency, and it just didn't feel right for exactly the same reasons that you talked about earlier. Now, I'm working as an independent, it's actually got my name above the door, so to speak. So I don't really have a choice. It's people are buying into me and my consultancy and advisory. So, but I just try to be myself, and I think any founder should. You can't pretend to be someone that you're not. There's a trend at the moment, I think, for the very sort of brash style of personal branding, quite in your face, and almost taking the approach of a YouTube influencer. And I guess that's okay for some people if that's what they really like. For me, I think as a person, I've I would like to think I have a degree of humility, and I don't know, I don't personally like that sort of show off in your face. You know, I've sold X million businesses, I've made 10-figure sums, you know, I've got a yacht. It just, I mean, I haven't got any of those, by the way, but even if I did, you know, I don't really like that style of personal branding. But there is a whole world of gurus out there, in inverted commas, that are very, very quick to tell you how successful they've been. I think British people culturally, in some ways, resent success. Of course, there's others that look up to it, admire it, and there's a whole world of coaches out there that make a lot of money by sort of sharing their knowledge, and I'm not knocking that. But for me, I think just always try and maintain a balance, have a degree of humility. Hopefully people will see you for who you are, so always try and communicate in the way that you'd speak, in the way that you'd conduct business. And if that's not loud enough or not exciting enough for some people, then so be it. But it's sort of never done me any harm just trying to be myself, because I think that's all you can be. And it goes the same as, you know, even if you're the CEO of a huge billion-dollar company, you can still only be yourself. You should never pretend to be anything, try to be anything that you're not. I think consumers see through that immediately.
Really interesting insight there, and I really like it. It resonates with me because I find myself on platforms when you're building out a social media presence. Each platform has its idiosyncrasy, but let's take TikTok. You have 3 seconds to grab people's attention. And I remember when I first went on TikTok, you know, I was being 100% myself, you know, and I'd be like, okay, well, hello, everybody. These are the 3 things you can do to make your business more successful, and 0 views, you know. So then I start looking at people that were getting a lot of traction. And in the first 3 seconds, they say, I'm a billionaire and I can make you one too, you know, and then they'd launch into how they would do it. And so I played a hybrid model, which is, you know, I play up that way. Actually, I play up, but then in reality, and I say, I can make you a billionaire by this time tomorrow, you know, get their attention and then play. But if anyone's actually saying that to you, let's just make this clear. That's impossible. You know, it's 15 years of hard work before I made any money, you know, and be ready for that. And you'll be happy. If you think you're going to be rich by tomorrow and you're not, you'll be disappointed. But you sometimes need to, I guess, play the game a bit to counteract the people that are doing that and then selling people a funnel or selling people, you know, some scam course that isn't going to achieve it. So, but it is an interesting problem. And I call it a problem because I think within social media, it definitely is a problem. It's one of the negatives of social media, the Instagram posts of everybody's Lamborghini, as if that actually is the thing that's making those people happy, which we all know it doesn't achieve, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, look, we've got a platform now that we can speak to our audience of, you know, quite considerable numbers within seconds. And there's always a temptation to always be talking, but just because a platform's there doesn't mean you have to use it. And sometimes you have to stop and think, you know, do I really need or want to put this out there? And each of the channels have different purposes. So, you know, I think what you're doing on TikTok is really interesting. And, you know, the numbers that you've built up, you know, show that you're doing something right and that there's an audience that's enjoying it. For me personally, I don't think I could play that role. If you go on my TikTok, you see, I think 3 videos, which, you know, and about 5 followers. But I'm not looking to build an audience there. I don't want an audience there. But for me, Twitter, you know, is an invaluable way to get your message out, and also, perhaps more importantly, to engage with people that you want to engage with. LinkedIn as well, incredibly valuable for me. Instagram's the one where I sort of see it as a way to open up a little bit about my life. I always try not to be too personal. I don't want people knowing everything about me, but Instagram allows you to give a bit of a sort of a blend of who you are as a person, so that people see that you're not just some robot that works 24/7.
Yeah, I think you know, it's really interesting, this conversation. I find that the inner workings of each of the platforms and what they can bring to an individual, it's good as you're breaking it down there, what works for you and why, is quite important for people to do, actually. And I find, I actually only went on TikTok because a large proportion of the people that don't have a job right now are young people.
Yes.
My personal natural platform is where we are right now in Clubhouse, on YouTube, connecting with people in this kind of authentic way. But TikTok has a lot of the people on there that feel, frankly, aggrieved. They were promised when they come out of university, for example, an exciting, fun job. It's not there. They were promised this dream that everyone would have a job that they would love, and that would make them rich. So I find myself actually, frankly, fighting to be a part of TikTok, although it's not my natural environment, but just so I can reach the very demographic that needs help.
Which is really smart. I mean, it's no surprise to anyone that young people aren't consuming traditional forms of media. So you have to work to reach them on the platforms that they're consuming their media, and TikTok, YouTube are obvious places to do it. I mean, I'm advising an e-gaming organisation called London United, who use the popularity of gaming to be able to help important societal causes, whether that's knife crime, loneliness, healthy eating. And the reason why they're doing so well is because they can get to a generation who are on Twitch, who are on YouTube, who are not consuming other forms of media. And brands are lining up to work with London United because they can see it as a vehicle that can reach people in a credible way and get across a really, really important message. I mean, my kids are young kids. Well, one of them's not so young, but my 10-year-old, his entire life is spent on TikTok and YouTube. So if I wanted to reach a 10-year-old like him, I would need to find a way to credibly get to him. And gaming is a great platform to do that. Of course, there's other ways to do it as well.
I'm also conscious that your son might be watching my videos, so I definitely don't swear in them, and I keep it real. But look, we've got a few questions coming in. Just before we bring up Nicholas Palmer, who's going to be joining us, who's got a fantastic startup, and he's going to tell us what he's up to. Just before we bring Nick on, I just want to offer up anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question. You can put your hand up on Clubhouse, put your hand up on YouTube, and I will be happy to give you a moment to ask Andrew a question. So we've got one come in. This I'll put on screen is from Josh. He's asking, when launching a startup with a smallish marketing budget, would you get a PR agency straight away, or super focused on testing and learning social ads?
I mean, it's a good question. It's obviously dependent on what type of business that you're running and how you feel PR can help. I think, don't think about PR just in terms of media relations and getting you exposure in sort of traditional media. Think about it as the route to creating your message, coming up with a great creative concept. And yes, you can put your money into performance marketing and you can test and learn. What PR can achieve is something that will sort of sprinkle the magic fairy dust on top of paid spend. So yes, you can pay to get eyeballs, but if you can create a message that will travel organically, if you can create PR that will boost you up, earn search rankings so that you're being found easier on Google, there's a huge value to that. I think, if you're starting up, you need to have something that's fit the size and purpose. So you're probably not going to want to put big fees into a huge agency, but you might want to work with a smaller agency, mid-size agency, or potentially even a freelancer. But it's not necessarily an absolutely integral part of the mix. I can't really say that without knowing the business, but I wouldn't dismiss it to begin with, because I think what sort of performance marketing agency or a PPC agency or SEO specialist won't do is help you craft the message, and you can end up testing and learning the hard way by just realizing you haven't got a message that resonates. The key to it, as I said earlier on, is coming up with something that will help you engage your audience and effectively do your best marketing for you by talking about it and spreading it online.
Well said. I mean, I always think it's underrated actually hiring someone and paying them properly to do a job at the beginning. It can save you years of pain, and especially in the strategy side. You don't know what you don't know when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So if you're doing it on your own, you can cost you a fortune. Same with branding, for example. I see a lot of people that do very bad branding and then wonder why they don't get traction. If they'd invested in branding by someone that knew that they were doing at the beginning, they'd have trust, and that would lead to a more successful business. But it is, I guess, a question of balancing out. If you've got it internally in you, the marketing in you, then maybe you don't need to hire someone. But if you don't have that skill, it's like not hiring a good accountant. It'd be a bit silly, right?
100%. And I think good PR can be very cost effective, and when it's done properly, will give you completely exponential results in terms of ROI. And that's why a lot of people turn to PR. And actually, the PR in itself is a good way of testing and learning before you move on to other forms of marketing.
Great. Nick, you're in the waiting room. I can see you. We're just going to bring you on stage. I've just got 2 more questions. And I think, Imran, you're up on Clubhouse. Do you want to ask Andrew a question?
Yeah, thanks, Simon, for pulling me up. Andrew, a very, very insightful discussion so far. Now, my question is, PR somehow can be evil, or PR can be good. I mean, from the times of Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda, to now the times of deepfake and fake news. And in between, somehow we as the consumers believe that our personal data is being used by all big PR companies. So what do you see the future of PR, and who's controlling companies like yours and other big companies who in the center is using our privacy data to disseminate the reality within the reality? Thank you.
Did you catch that, Andrew?
I got most of it, yeah. It was a bit hard for me to hear. I'm not going to get into a debate on privacy and the future of privacy and data, because I think that is a whole new topic that we probably haven't got time to cover. In terms of the future of PR, PR is not a new profession. It's been around for many, many years, and the future's bright. It will continue to use its power to adapt as technology and the media adapt. The whole landscape of the media has meant that publications, journalists, the media are more reliant than ever on great PR people, and they've got less resources to do the work themselves. So they need to work hand in hand with good PR agencies. And added to that, the importance of brands with purpose, brands with authenticity, brands that understand what they need to be doing from a CSR perspective, and the ability of PR to be able to tell a story and articulate it, puts PR in a really, really strong position. And I might be biased, but I'm more confident and passionate about the future of the PR industry than I ever have been at any stage in my career. So I hope that answers your question somewhat.
No, thank you. That's very, very powerful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Pete, you're up. Do you have a question for Andrew or myself?
I do have a question for Andrew. Well, I've got 2 questions. Andrew, are you already addicted to Clubhouse? Because you're going to be on with me later on today. That's my first question. And my second question is, what's the biggest PR stunt that you have ever pulled?
What's the biggest PR stunt I've ever pulled off?
Yeah, what's the best PR stunt you've ever pulled off?
Hi, Pete. So, yes, I think I am probably a little bit addicted to Clubhouse. I'm fascinated by any new form of social media, and I only joined on Saturday. But I can see such big potential for PR companies, for brands, for influencers on it that, by listening to it and getting involved in it, my mind is just going. And I woke up in the middle of the night actually with just what I think is a brilliant idea for someone to do on Clubhouse that hasn't been done yet. So I love any emerging form of technology and social media. And I'm very much looking forward to speaking to you later on today at 4:30. I hope I've left something for me to say. In terms of, I don't know, greatest PR stunt, I mean, probably my favorite was the one that put Frank as an agency on the map. And it's, I don't know, good 15 years old now, but it just makes me smile. We were working for HP Sauce, brown sauce. We received a brief which was sort of help us increase consumption and create recipes and blah, blah, blah. And we sort of thought about it, and brown sauce, it's one of these things, you either like it or you don't. You just have to put it front of mind, and people think, oh, I quite fancy a bacon sandwich or a sausage sandwich. So we looked at the brand, the Britishness, the heritage. We looked at the sport of snooker that we thought would be a really good fit. And to cut a long story short, we did the first ever sponsorship of a ball in snooker, which was obviously the brown ball. Never been done before. To this day, I don't know how we managed to persuade the World Snooker Organization to agree to do it. And then to commemorate the deal, we approached Jimmy White, who's sort of legend in the game, really popular player. And we asked him if he would change his name by deed poll to Jimmy Brown. And he said, yeah, he thought it was great fun, really loved the idea. And then we wound up the BBC and all of the broadcasters by getting Jimmy's lawyers to write to them and say, if you don't call him Jimmy Brown, he's not going to appear. The lawyers fell right into our hands. So we got these letters from the BBC legal department saying, you know, this is a commercial deal. We're not going to agree to do that. Jimmy said he won't play. Obviously made, you know, huge amounts of press coverage that, you know, the BBC played right into our hands. A massive amount of talkability. And I remember going, it was the game, it was the Masters tournament, and it was being played at Wembley Arena. And I remember walking down Wembley Arena with my co-founder of Frank, Graham Goodkind. And as we were walking down, there was like these merchandise stands selling like Jimmy Brown t-shirts with him holding bottles of HP sauce and those sort of naff scarves that fans wear at games and matches, which had HP sauce Jimmy Brown on it. And, you know, we haven't paid for that. We hadn't asked anyone to do it, but it really tapped into the public consciousness. And as a result of that campaign, HP saw the biggest sales increase that they'd ever had in their history. And it just proves that if you can create talkability, get a buzz going, that's great PR. And so for me, I think it will always stick out. One, because I love the campaign and it makes me smile still talking about it all these years later. But two, I think it was the campaign that put Frank on the map and really propelled us to success. And for years and years, people were coming to us and saying, you know, we want a Jimmy Brown. And now Frank is experiencing the same with Weetabix. You know, every phone call that comes in, we want a Weetabix and beans. And I love anything like that. If your mum's heard of it, if your gran's heard of it, if a black taxi driver's heard of it, that's when you've sort of really got into public consciousness and made a difference. And it's not changing the world, but it's having a bit of fun. And that's what I love doing. Sorry, apologies.
Just going to say, it'd be fascinating to find out from you about Clubhouse and the whole talkability factor, because it obviously is all about talkability, but we can talk about that another time. Simon, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you on Hampstead Heath for a cup of coffee one of these days.
Looking forward to that. And please follow Pete, everybody. He will be doing a chat with Andrew at 4:30 today. So hit that alarm bell so you know. And for my friends on YouTube on Android, be like Andrew Bloch. And on Friday, say you're not going on Clubhouse. And on Saturday, be on Clubhouse. So
put it on my iPad, which gives me some level of restraint because I don't have it with me the whole time, which is a good tip for anyone.
I do enjoy it when people naturally love this stuff and you tell them to go on Clubhouse. There's always that initial reaction. I had it too, which is I'm already on I've got so many things to do. I don't need another platform. And then when we discover how amazing these things are, we find ourselves turning into free PR for them.
Well, you were the one that broke me. I think I had about 30 invites in my inbox, and I kept just replying saying, I'm on Android, I'm on Android. And then I don't know what it was, maybe a moment of boredom. But
if it works out for you, and then I'm going to take full credit. If it breaks you,
it won't break me. It won't break me.
Yeah, it's definitely addictive and fun, and it's so nice. Thanks, Pete, for coming up and asking you a question. One more before we bring Nick on. Darren, you've been waiting, so I don't want to not let you ask a question, but can you make it quick? Because I've got someone waiting that wants to share their startup, and we're going to help them. So, Darren, do you want to unmic and ask a question of Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, thanks very much, Simon, for bringing me up. I think what you're doing for entrepreneurs is just fantastic. Andrew, I could listen to you all day speaking about brands with purpose and talking about social responsibility. Your passion is just apparent. I've got a really quick question then. I've got a small startup, it's called Aftercloud. We're working in the space of sort of dementia and end of life. We're making tremendous waves. We are a startup though, and we're pre-seed. And I just wondered if you've got any advice in terms of PR at this level, rather than something that's kind of sexy and, yeah, that's my question.
It's a good question. And I'll try and give you just sort of a brief answer. and I'd be happy to pick up with you offline just because of time. But I think, you know, you're dealing, I don't really understand exactly what you're doing, but based on what you've just said, you know, life and death doesn't really get more emotive than that. It's something that affects every single person on the planet. So finding a way to tap into that and link it to your business and what you're doing is the key. But whenever you have a business that literally affects the whole world, what a great target audience to go after and to attach to. So as I say, it's difficult for me to answer because I don't really know what your business does and I don't want to give stupid advice that's irrelevant. But do send me a DM or something and I'll have a look at it and I'll give you a shout back.
Thank you. That's great. Much appreciated. Thanks, Simon.
Love what you're doing, Dan. I just had a read of your profile. Amazing. Keep up the good work. I'm
not quite so good at multitasking, so I couldn't read and talk at the same time. I'm not as talented as you, Simon.
No, I'm dyslexic, so I'm literally like somehow overcoming these problems, especially when I'm reading good profiles like that, Darren. So thanks very much for coming on, everybody. Okay, so now we're going to have a fantastic entrepreneur called Nicholas Palmer come up and tell us his story, and we're going to try and help him for the next 15, 20 minutes for the rest of the time that we're here. So Nick, welcome.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good afternoon.
Good. Wonderful to have you here. Maybe we could kick off by you just telling everybody that's listening a little bit about what you're doing and how we might be able to help you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm one of 3 co-founders of a wine brand called Bowl Grabber. Actually, my background is also in branding and marketing. I've been working at WPP for the last 15 years, and actually I currently run one of the largest content marketing divisions in the world. Historically, though, I've been a brand guy, I've been a brand strategist, and that's where all of my passion really lies. 2 years ago, I was looking at the wine market and asking myself, why on earth is it not being disrupted in the same way that the beer and the spirits markets had been disrupted? Or to put it another way, where's the BrewDog or Beavertown of wine? The more I looked, the more I saw this huge market, $350 billion market, that's stuck in the past, but was showing all the signs that it's ready for and ripe for some disruption. You had these big macro consumer trends like people drinking less, being more conscious about sustainability, combining with these audience trends, such as people having a diminishing knowledge of wine and the wine category. And then you had all these innovations happening in category, such as canned wines, bag-in-box wines, which are more environmentally friendly. All of them were seeing amazing growth. But what you didn't have was a brand that could define all of that and become a reference point for a new generation or a lost generation of wine drinkers. And that's where my many years of studying marketing theory came into play. And I developed a brand that I think is both distinctive and memorable, and that's Bowl Grabber. Now, if you're wondering what a bowl grabber is, and for those on Clubhouse, you won't be able to see me, but it's someone who holds their wine glass by the bowl, not the stem, which is a big old faux pas in the world of wine, because apparently it warms up your wine and makes it less enjoyable to drink. But the question I always ask is, who knows the precise temperature a glass of wine should be served at anyway? And it was precisely this type of wine snobbery that was putting off an entire generation of drinkers. So I wanted to embrace the faux pas. I wanted to be a brand about carefree enjoyment and not snobbishness, thus the name. And I also thought that if you had a brand that became synonymous with the way that people held their glass anyway, it would be, earned media gold in the future. So Bowl Grabber was born by myself and my business partner. My business partner is very much the yin to my yang. So he's a top lawyer. He's worked inside some of the largest consumer and tech brands in the world. And between us, we kind of cover off diligence, operational excellence, plus strategy and creativity. And Simon, I'm also dyslexic, so I think that's where I get some of that creativity and strategy from. But what we didn't have, and it's fairly essential when you're starting a wine business, is an intimate knowledge of wine. Yes, like everybody, we quite like drinking wine, but we didn't have anyone who was a real expert in the area. So what we did is we found arguably the most knowledgeable wine expert in the world, one of only 400 masters of wine. And I don't know if you guys know what master of wine is, but it's the highest qualification or accolade that anybody in the wine world can earn. More people have been into space than have got this qualification. And so Barry, our master of wine, is responsible for sourcing amazing on-trend and quality wine. Our first one is an Alvarinho from Portugal, and we recently picked up 2 awards in the People's Choice Wine Awards. So we know that what we've got is a product that tastes fantastic, and while it's fun and frivolous and exciting on the outside, and again, excuse the people on Clubhouse, but I can hold up the branding and design here. It's been designed by a rising star on Instagram, a young lady called Egil Zivbright, who's worked with Adidas and Apple and Google. While we know that on the outside it's frivolous and fun and enjoyable, on the inside it's a top quality product. So that's Bowl Grabber, and that's why I'm chatting to you guys today.
Fantastic, and thank you. And yes, for those that are on Clubhouse now listening, we're actually on YouTube doing a podcast right now, but I wanted to include you guys in this. And Nick Palmer, he's the co-founder of Bowl Grabber, is on just telling us a bit about his business. Yeah. And myself and Andrew want to help. So what do you need? What are you jumping on here to do today? How can we help?
Well, look, there's the big rate limiting step for us at the moment is, I guess, what lots of people experience, and it's funding. And especially in a category which is quite capital intensive. To date, we've self-funded, we've done a good job of it, but there's going to come a point where we need to seek funding. And so my first question really to gentlemen like yourselves, who I'm sure historically there would have been a first time that you went to market to look for a cash injection. What is your advice for someone in my circumstance looking to raise a fair bit of money in order to propel us forward? Because we've got orders, we've got decent distribution, but to kickstart the business, it's going to take a runway of money to be able to fund it.
Okay, I'll jump in first, and Andrew, feel free to also kick in at any moment if you have a view on this. But can I ask you, first of all, how much are you looking to raise?
We've estimated it at about £250,000 at the moment. Okay,
and what will the money be spent on?
So the money will be spent in a couple of areas, primarily being able to bring to market 2 of the other ranges we want to do. So we've got a white in market, we've got a rosé coming in April, which we've managed to fund ourselves. We've got a red lined up and ready to go, but we don't have the capital to fulfill it. And we've also got a non-alcoholic variety lined up and ready to go. So it would be able to complete the first full range, which the UK's largest online supermarket will be stocking as of March. And it will then be to put a marketing plan around it, to build awareness and mental availability of the brand, because that's where most of my skill set comes into play.
I'm an investor in quite a lot of businesses, so I think I can say this. It's not always good to have an investor, right? And so personally, I built an agency on cash flow. And certainly if your business is in the product business, which I actually always love product businesses, because in theory, it is just a cash flow management issue, isn't it?
It is.
So if you I guess you're talking about, a Cardo, for example, you put it on their system, they expect the product in advance, then sell it, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this cash flow, is it? Am I right in that analysis?
I guess yes and no, because especially in the alcohol market, because of the excise duty that gets slapped on by the British government, it is not a margin-rich business. And as a consequence, you're kind of chasing your tail if it's cash flow all the time. And you can never really grow at the rate that you need to grow. And as a consequence of that, the real value comes in the intangibility of the brand, and getting the brand out there, and building awareness, and ultimately getting distribution with the bricks and mortar retailers where the footfall lies. So while yes, we could manage it on cash flow, maybe we're just being a little bit impatient.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the pitch to investors. That, for example, of investing in a tech business, the type of investors you go after versus what I hear in your business model, which is, you're not the tech, Ocado is the tech, right? So you are the product, and it's a different type of investor, I guess is what I'm saying.
It is.
I actually think it's an easier pitch. There's a lot of people out there sitting on money, not making much interest. And if you can make pitch, which is put 250 in today, and 2 years from now, we are a cash flow positive business throwing off 250 in profit. There are a lot of high net worth individuals that would take that deal.
Yeah,
right?
The interesting thing is you hit Google for angel investors and you get a long list of tech investors, and it's just finding those first doors to open for people who are interested in the world of beverages and in physical brands, as opposed to the next big tech startup, because I can find names and names of people who invest in those businesses as opposed to the pond I want to be fishing in.
And I mean, I think with this question, it's such an open question, how to raise money. But I always go back to kind of my agency mindset, and that is like, can you kill two birds with one stone? By the way, English sayings are completely ridiculous, aren't they? I don't know why would I want to kill any birds with any stones. I've never wanted to kill a bird. I love birds. If for some reason I wanted to kill two birds with one stone, I think that one element of this could be, if you can find, this is the wrong person. But as an example, right, Gary V, right? Yeah. He loves wine. He wants to market wine, and he's got the money to invest. Now, he's got his own company, so it might be some conflicts. But conceptually, I think if you can get someone that's going to help you on the marketing side, ironically, it wouldn't just be the money. It would be probably the marketing side that would be more valuable. I would target those types of people. There are a lot of people that I've had on my podcast show, for example, a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that love wine. Yeah. And so getting one of them on board who's also well known, I think that could be the holy grail of this one for you.
Yeah, my 2 pence. I mean, I think what Simon said is so wise in terms of not necessarily needing the money. It's sometimes harder to raise 250 grand than it is to raise 250 million. It's just sort of the way investment goes. I would be looking at definitely investors that can add value to what you're doing. And there are different ways to structure deals in order to achieve that. Also looking at people that have invested in this sector already, and there's a handful of quite well-known investors that put their money into food and drink brands, but also someone that understands your journey and what you're trying to achieve. And as a marketeer, I'm not claiming to be an investment guru, I'm certainly not, but I know a bit about PR and marketing, and what I love about it is everything from the name. I'm a bowl grabber myself. I didn't know what one was until 10 minutes ago, but I'm definitely in that category. But I love the fact that you're going up against the establishment, and there's a real huge opportunity there, is obviously that you've kind of identified already. The other thing I'd be looking at is just, as Simon said, it's a cash flow thing, and I know you want to get there quicker and be quicker, but it's so ripe as a D2C brand that I would think you could structure something that would enable you to build the cash flow quickly and build the business through the D2C part, and look at the sort of growth trajectory of the company in 2 stages. So part 1 is build the D2C, get the revenue coming in, and then reinvest that in order to be able to fulfill the offline. But I see the future of what you're doing personally as being an online business without having retailers anyway. Better market, more control.
The D2C one's really interesting, right? Because from a media background and a paid media background, I get the relationship between money in, money out, and how a D2C model needs to work. And I loved your observations earlier about PR driving SEO, because so many of the PR agencies I talk to these days don't get the link between good PR content and search ranking. And so I'm very acutely aware of the fact that there is a big future in the D2C model. My only caveat there is, I think we need to have a range in order for people to come onto the site and buy. And because of the slim margins that exist in the way we currently operate, the paid media D2C model that your quote unquote gurus will advertise with their sales funnels on YouTube, per discussion earlier, they don't add up. The money doesn't stack up. So I definitely think there's an SEO opportunity, and one of the things that I'm doing is working with copywriters to develop all of the blog content that's going to be needed to pick up the long tail of keywords. But there needs to be a tipping point that I need to stimulate, and perhaps it can be organic, or perhaps it needs a slight cash injection, and maybe it's me who does that.
Yeah, I mean, the other way is looking at a sort of ambassador in the same way as like an esports team would have. So you bring on board a celebrity ambassador that will invest into the business, but like Simon says, in terms of adding value, just you look at what Fred Sirieix is doing with Marks and Spencer's wines at the moment. I mean, it's off the chart in terms of the success, and that model can be copied.
Yeah, and so many celebrities do go into this world, right? So Philip Schofield's got his wine, Keira Knightley's got her wine, the Brad and Angelina have got their rosés. So the avenue of celebrity is definitely something that's interested me. And trust me, I've been firing off blank emails to celebrities' agents to try and get a bite over the last few weeks, because I see the value that a high-profile person can add without dominating the brand. So again, the conversation that you guys were having earlier, I don't want the shadow of an individual looming over what I think is quite a powerful brand anyway.
I agree, but they can help you get the reach, and they can help you disrupt by getting people to understand what Bold Grabber's about versus the established wine market. Much easier than you can as a brand. You'd need to find the right person that stands for your values and is a Bold Grabber themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
There are two things I'll just throw out quickly, Nick, as thoughts. Again, these aren't the way you have to think. These are just my quick thoughts. On Clubhouse, I have a friend of mine, Rachel, who is the founder of Corrie Kids, in the audience, and she's raised £14 million for her business. So if she wanted to come up on stage and talk, Rachel, put up your hand. You'd be welcome. I'd just say a few things that Rachel may or may not agree with. But I don't think you necessarily need to raise money. I know I keep saying it, and you might really be happy that you didn't. And I love this concept of compound. I was interviewing the founders of the White Company. Do you know that brand? And the family behind it. And they resisted raising money, and they're so glad that they did as the years went by, because they didn't have anyone telling them what to do. They didn't have anyone trying to take out the business, and now they 100% own it. So whatever they want to do, become chairman, work on it every day, not work on it every day. No one's telling them otherwise, right? You have that freedom. And I would really, I can see a path for you that doesn't require you to raise money, but it also requires you to breathe in and out and be patient a little bit. And if you are, I think it can make a huge difference. However, of course, getting a celebrity endorsement on board can be really powerful, but we can pay for that, right? And you can even do an affiliate program with those types of people. So I also interviewed Spencer Matthews. He was born in Chelsea star, and he's got a product called Clean. It's worth listening to that interview, by the way. I don't know if you've watched it. But he talks about how he is leading it with him as a brand, and he is the person on every single bus right now in London. It's just crazy, and he's doing really well. And so there is something to be said around leading it from the front as one person. And I wouldn't be so I wouldn't care so much if one person was at the front of it, if the results were the business was working, and that person was committed to the core values of the business. And so to me, that's what's important, the core value of what you're trying to achieve. I would also, by the way, tap up Ocado. Yeah. They are investments. And they're quite cash rich right now with their 850 million from Marks and Spencer's, which is pissed me off, to be frank. I mean, it's daytime TV, so maybe I shouldn't swear. But and I've included your past company brand name in there in one sentence, Andrew. But they have plastic over everything, right? So, but what I'm saying is that they have the ability to make you very popular very quickly. They have me as a client. They have everybody that could buy wine. They know who they are, right? So that's another way to go, which is kind of get the data-driven investment partner on board.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super smart, and I'm trying to figure out the best ways. The D word, the data word, came up briefly earlier as well, but the best ways to use the data that's available to me to really focus all of my targeting efforts within that cohort shoppers at the moment. And the next thing I need is that the UK is about to open up, right? We're about to hopefully have a lockdown-free second part of the year, and I think there could be a big party. And what I would love to happen is have distribution physically as well as digitally. And so that's where
I overrate that. I think there's some changes that have happened. Just my instinct. I'm not saying it's not going to be popular, don't get me wrong, but I don't think people, if they can get it delivered to their home, this was always going to happen anyway.
Yeah,
you know, I don't really want to go and hold 4 bottles of wine and carry them back home. I don't want to do it. What I want is order it and delivered quickly. So that's what Deliveroo and these guys have picked up on that. You should maybe get in with Deliveroo, right? I mean, I would spend £1 with Deliveroo getting it to me in 15 minutes than going to the supermarket, even with no lockdown. You know, it's not like I'm missing going to the supermarket, to be honest. That's not going to be my first dream to get back into you in the supermarket, right? So,
True.
I would be a modern company, Nick. I would go and use your content strategy, use your search strategy, and really kind of tap into the new way of communicating with people, and not ignore that old traditional. That could distract you, and I actually don't think that's the future. Just my opinion. Again, you might 10 years from now, everyone will be queuing up in supermarkets, and Ocado will be out of business. There's a chance I'm wrong, right? But I don't think so.
I think that's an unlikely prediction to happen.
We'll play this video back later. Simon said Ocado were going to take over the world, and look, they're gone.
Exactly. No, that's clearly it's super insightful, and it confirms a lot of the Marcom's approach that I was thinking about anyway. I mean, the other flip of that is I think there's a lot to be said about physical activation where people are. And the product is more than bottles, because we're really leaning into the sustainable formats. And I think there is a pick up a can at your local Sainsbury's or Tesco's and go down the park and have a drink of it. I'm certainly seeing a lot of people on benches at the moment with tinnies of whatever it might be.
You want to just go to Primrose Hill and Hampstead Heath and do like the Red Bull model.
Yeah.
And that product and that whole area is going to be popular over the summer.
Yeah.
So I'm not queuing up in supermarkets, but definitely, if you were delivering quality wine grabbers, they're all wine grab, they're all grabbers. Even a meme, I think that would be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to that challenger brand mentality of what would a wine company never do?
Yeah.
And then do it. So I love the idea of sort of distribution on park benches and, anything that goes up against the snobbery of wine love and has a bit of fun. That's what's going to give you the disproportionate attention.
Exactly. And look, it was a question that I think 2 people have asked so far is, what do you do on a shoestring budget to build a brand? And you're answering it right. It's you
are the challenger to the big fish in the market. And actually, I don't know if you were listening to the example I was talking about earlier with Jimmy White and the BBC.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're leveraging their popularity and their fame and being a bit of an irritant. I mean, never to the point where, if they're going to be a potential investor or something that you're upsetting them, but have fun at their expense. Try and provoke them to react to what you're doing. And they've got the scale and the audience that you'll get noticed. And it's hard for the big brands to react sensibly. They're always almost going to be the enemy to you being the superhero that's coming on and challenging them. So I would just encourage you to have as much fun as possible. And I think your audience from, I don't know the brand completely because I've just listened to what you said, but I think they will appreciate the humor. And the whole point of your brand is anti-wine snobs. And there's plenty of people like me who enjoy a glass of wine, but I just about know the difference between red and white. And, that's my limit. But, and wine people I find generally quite boring. And that's your brand. So have fun. Find the high-profile wine connoisseurs and lovers and sommeliers and attack them.
It's such great advice. And look, it's where my head's kind of been. But you framed it perfectly. Cheers.
I get quite excited about this, what Andrew's talking about, and I start wanting to brainstorm ideas, like, you know, go stand on the soapbox at Hyde Park as things start to pick up, and have, you know, like the Life of Brian moment where someone's standing in a box, you know, you've all got to hold your wine glass like this.
Exactly.
Wine, you know, and then video it, and then video people's reactions to it, you know, and that will create, I think, all sorts of interesting viral stuff that could lead to, you know, supporting the brand. But none of that costs money. Going standing on a soapbox at Hyde Park, I could do it with you tomorrow with a camera.
Exactly.
You know? And
a whole generation of YouTubers have taught us, you know, being creative and grabbing attention, you know, just doesn't cost money. Look at people like Zach and Jay and what they're doing on their YouTube channel. You know, they're effectively doing PR stunts. They don't consider themselves to be PR people, but I always say to them, you should work in PR. But they're doing that on a shoestring budget. And that's often something that people, you know, the first thing people often ask me is like, but I haven't got any money, how do I do it? And like Simon says, you know, great creativity really doesn't have to cost a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got good people advising me as well. Andrew, I think you probably know my sister-in-law Rochelle Collison. She's helping me out with some advice. So good backup.
Yeah. So no, very, very small world. And Simon told me earlier, just before we got on the call, that he chose you out of 200 people or something randomly.
Oh, amazing.
And a really small world that, well, your brother used to work for me, and then he married Rochelle.
They met at your agency.
Brilliant people, both of them brilliant people. So,
well, there's something to be said about how the universe brings good people together, doesn't it? But Nick, just going back to your original question, I just want to make sure, you know, I honestly think if it's a cash flow requirement, even I'd be interested in investing in it, and if it's just cash flow, you know, like, and someone just put in my comment, my neighbour is Ricky Gervais. I'm always dropping his name because he's the only celebrity I know, and he's the only celebrity I like, if I'm being honest. And he's my neighbour. He would be brilliant because he likes to drink. You know, so send me over a deck, and next time I'll see him, I'll kind of like, hey, you should be investing in this, Ricky. No promises, but you never know.
Well, look, I won't take a promise from that, but as manifestations of people who stick two fingers up to snobbishness, you can't get much better.
That's why I thought when someone posted it, because I'm always mentioning him. He's the only celebrity I like because he's so down to earth, and he's kind of, you know, he's what he is, but you know, that to me, that would be the perfect investor for you and this brand. And you know, I'm sure when I say, you see, when people say they don't want someone leading it until you get the right person, then you don't mind. If Ricky Gervais was like, let me take care of it, don't worry, mate. You do the back end, you let me take the front end. You'd be like, sure, Ricky, no problem, right?
Yeah, 100%.
When you get the right partner, it's never about the money. In fact, I would say 250. You know, who needs it? Ricky's involved, you know, forget it. Like Andrew said, it's going to be easier for 250 million at that point, you know, like it's almost, yeah. Anyway, I get about what you're doing, Nick. I don't even drink wine, by the way. I haven't drunk alcohol my whole life.
Oh, wow.
I haven't touched alcohol my whole life. And I'm still excited about what you're doing because I see from an anti-snobbish perspective, it's so right on the money for right now.
It's good of you to say. No wonder you're so energetic, Simon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I don't know how that actually relates to having an alcohol, but I drink a lot of coffee. Maybe that's the opposite way. But look, great, Nick, to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I think Andrew and we have to set up a, you know, come get PR advice room at some point. We should do something like that, Andrew. That'd be a lot of fun. I think people come and get some support around their campaigns, because I honestly believe that if you've got the right marketing in place, you can generate the money you need. And I'm saying it as an investor, right? I'm saying that it's, you know, if you can actually build a business without an investor, it is actually a really good idea, unless that investor brings huge value, like Ricky Gervais would, to this equation, right? So yeah. Anyway, Nick, awesome. Keep up the good work. Stay in touch. And
absolutely. Thank you very much, gents.
You're welcome, Andrew. I want to say thank you to you as well. I know you've got another chat at 4:30 on Clubhouse with Pete. So I'm going to let you go and rest a bit. But I want to say thank you again for coming on, sharing your insights, sharing your story. And we'll be back on Clubhouse again, and hopefully back on YouTube again very soon.
No doubt. Thank you for having me, Simon. I've enjoyed it. It's my first YouTube Clubhouse duel, sort of whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, TikTok. We're on every single social media channel right now. And actually, everybody's loving you, I'd just like to say. So appreciate your insights today, Andrew.
Brilliant. Well, lovely to talk to you, and I will speak to you soon.
All right. Have a good day. That's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this room, this broadcast. To the folks on Clubhouse, thanks for listening. To everybody that asked questions, thank you so much for chipping in. Thank you for helping Nick. He's doing a business in a difficult time right now. So you can see the links to Nick's business below. You could go give him a like on his social media. It really won't cost you anything. And I think right now, any business that's starting up that could potentially create more jobs and keep those people that own those businesses in a job, paying tax, is absolutely worth your time to go give them a like on their social media. And if anyone wants to stand on a soapbox in Hyde Park and promote Nick's business, contact me through Instagram, and I'll be very happy to make you part of that campaign. I hope Nick does. Anyway, that's it today. Our mission is to help 1 million people start a business of their own. We have helped 79 people so far. If you want to be one of the people that we help, please contact us through thepurposefulproject.com. If there's anything you need in the meantime, you can drop us a comment at any of the broadcast locations you're listening to right now. We reply to all comments. On one of our last videos, we got 14,000 comments. We managed to reply to them all. Be patient with us, but we will always reply. And in addition, if there's anything you need, you can always just contact us straight through the website. We pretty much reply to all the emails eventually, but do reach out if there's anything we can do to help you. And if any of the people that you've listened to today, you have any ways that you can help them, I'd really appreciate if you gave back in any way you could, if you got any value from anything today. That's it. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you soon.